Owen's ball bounced toward the forbidden kitchen floor, the one spot his grandfather warned him never to approach. A stranger in a suit was knocking at the front door, calling out with an official, persistent voice. Owen stepped back in panic and crashed through the rotting boards into a hidden crawl space filled with metal boxes. When he opened them and saw what his grandfather had been hiding, his hands trembled as he reached for the phone. Owen had expected a boring summer when his parents dropped him off at his grandfather's farmhouse. The 12-year-old looked around at the isolated property at the end of a dirt road. His grandfather Gerald was waiting at the door, looking thinner and more worried than Owen remembered. Gerald welcomed Owen inside, then immediately gave him a set of house rules. Most were normal enough, but then Gerald paused. His voice dropped as he explained the most important rule. Owen was never to go near a specific section of the kitchen floor where the boards creaked, and under no circumstances should he ever step on them. Owen waited for an explanation about rot or structural damage, but Gerald just stood there, his jaw tight, his eyes darting toward the kitchen. The old man repeated the warning before walking away, leaving Owen confused. The first few days passed quietly. Owen explored the property, but he couldn't stop noticing his grandfather's strange behavior. Every time Owen wandered near the kitchen, Gerald would appear and firmly steer him away. The old man's hands would grip Owen's shoulders too tightly, his breathing too quick. At night, things got stranger. Owen would wake to sounds from downstairs. Footsteps in the kitchen, the drag of something heavy, that distinctive creak of old wood. He'd see light spilling from the kitchen and his grandfather's shadow moving inside. What was Gerald doing down there at 2 in the morning? During the day, Gerald checked the windows constantly, scanning the empty driveway as if expecting visitors. Owen started to wonder if the old man was hiding something. Gerald flinched at unexpected sounds. He kept the curtains drawn, and always he watched that section of the kitchen floor like it might betray him. One afternoon, Owen was tossing a ball when it bounced into the kitchen. He jogged after it, forgetting the rule for just a moment. The ball stopped at the edge of the forbidden floorboards. Owen reached for it when he heard tires on gravel. A car was coming up the driveway. Gerald wasn't home. Owen looked out the window and watched as a sedan pulled up. A man in a suit stepped out carrying a briefcase. He looked official, the kind of person who came with authority and questions. The man approached the front door. Owen's mind raced with his grandfather's warnings and constant fear. Something was wrong, and this stranger was here while his grandfather was away. Owen stepped backward instinctively, the crack of old wood giving way beneath his weight. The floor collapsed. Owen plunged through splintering boards, hitting the ground hard in a shallow crawl space. Pain shot through his shoulder as dust filled the air. As his eyes adjusted, Owen saw metal boxes surrounding him, stacked in neat rows. His hands trembled as he opened the nearest box. Military medals lay nestled inside, their ribbons still bright. Owen lifted one, seeing an engraved soldier's name. Beneath the medals were folded letters and photographs of young men in uniform. Above him, knocking, sharp raps on the front door, the stranger was calling out, asking if anyone was home. His voice carried authority. Owen's hands shook. Why was his grandfather hiding military medals under the floor? He opened another box. More medals, more letters, more faces of soldiers staring from old photographs. The knocking stopped, but footsteps circled the house. The man was checking windows. Owen's breathing quickened. Was this person here to arrest Gerald? He found more letters in the next box, but these were different. Personal notes to Gerald. One read, "You're the only one who remembered me." Another, "Please keep these safe. My family doesn't care about my service." These medals had been entrusted to his grandfather by the veterans themselves. Owen searched frantically, finding research notes in Gerald's handwriting. His grandfather had documented each soldier's name, service record, and service location. Some entries mentioned contacting family members who never responded. Plans for a memorial sketched on paper, showing where each name would be displayed. Then Owen found the papers that changed everything. Legal documents stuffed in a separate container, marked with angry red stamps. Final notice. Return stolen property. Prosecution pending. Owen read threatening letters demanding Gerald immediately return items allegedly stolen from a military archive. The dates showed these had been arriving for months. One letter spelled it out clearly. Failure to return stolen government property will result in criminal charges. Owen's hands went cold. His grandfather was being accused of theft. That's why Gerald lived in constant fear. But there was more. Owen found receipts from an estate sale 20 years ago. The documents showed Gerald had purchased the entire collection legally. The estate sale company's information was all there, official and documented. More papers revealed Gerald's attempts to research the items, letters to the military archives asking about proper procedures. Then, years later, the threatening letters started. Someone had flagged the collection as stolen property. Owen understood now. His grandfather hadn't stolen anything. He'd bought these medals legally, then spent 20 years honoring the soldiers. But the estate sale organizer had apparently stolen these items before dying, leaving no trail. Gerald had unknowingly purchased stolen property and now faced accusations he couldn't fight without proof. The old man had been living in terror, not because he was guilty, but because he didn't know how to prove his innocence. So Gerald hid the boxes and lived with crushing fear rather than risk losing everything. The knocking returned, more aggressive. Owen heard the man calling out. Fear gripped Owen, but determination rose stronger. His grandfather shouldn't have to live like this anymore. Owen climbed out of the crawl space. He went to the front door and opened it. The man looked surprised to see a boy. Owen told him he needed to call the police. The stranger introduced himself as a military archives investigator. Owen cut him off and started explaining. He described the estate sale receipts proving legal purchase, his grandfather's meticulous research, the threatening letters, and how Gerald had spent 2 decades caring for these items while living in fear. When Gerald returned and saw Owen talking to the investigator, his face drained of color. He looked terrified, but Owen stood firm. He led the man inside and showed him the crawl space, pointing out the organization, preservation efforts, and most importantly, the receipts proving everything. The investigator examined the evidence. His expression changed from suspicion to understanding. He made phone calls and collected documents. Gerald stood frozen, watching his 20 years of fear come to a head. The investigation stretched over weeks. Authorities traced the estate sale back to its organizer, discovering he'd died years ago, but had indeed stolen the items from the archive. Gerald had purchased stolen property unknowingly, but had acted with complete integrity. The threatening letters came from a junior investigator who jumped to conclusions without reviewing the full evidence. Gerald was cleared of all accusations. The medals were transferred to a proper museum with full acknowledgement of Gerald's role in preserving them. The museum created a display honoring both the soldiers and Gerald's dedication. At the dedication ceremony, families of the forgotten soldiers attended. They thanked Gerald for keeping their relatives' stories alive. That night, Owen and Gerald stood in the kitchen, looking at the repaired floorboards. The old man placed his hand on Owen's shoulder and thanked him. For 20 years, Gerald had carried the weight of fear alone, too terrified that asking for help would lead to his arrest. Owen had done what his grandfather couldn't. He'd trusted that the truth would be enough, and he'd been correct. The floor no longer held secrets, and neither did Gerald. What would you have done if you discovered your grandfather's hidden collection under the floor?